another episode of Dear ABG, where we answer your listener submitted questions. If you don't know us by now, we are ABG, Asian Boss Girl, a podcast for the modern day Asian American woman. My name is Helen.
I'm Janet.
And I'm Mel.
And before we get started, we're gonna do a fun random question. So the question of today is going to be, would you rather have unlimited first class international tickets or never have to pay for food at a restaurant?
Damn, dude. You're hitting me where everything it's so
all
hard.
Yeah.
I would rather have unlimited first class international tickets because they're so expensive. I'm never gonna be able to afford that. So like if I get that unlimited, it'd be great. And I feel like I could validate paying for food versus paying for like a first class ticket.
I have the opposite answer.
Oh.
And my thinking is that I feel like food is something you need daily and like 3 times a day, right? And so if it's like unlimited for a lifetime, I'm probably not going to be wanting to fly internationally for every period of my life, but I'm going to need to eat every day forever, right? So it's a bit of a practical thing that I feel like just the food would pay itself, or it would just equate to a greater value. I don't know. What about you, Helen?
Am I the tiebreaker?
I'm actually very curious.
I'm also much more practical. Because I think for me, there like the math just like went off in my head. Like how many times am I actually gonna fly internationally? And also the practical side says like when you fly there, you still have to pay for hotel. And you still have to pay for food. So that racks up if you're trying, like obviously if you have first class international, like maybe I'll just go on the plane and go around in the store and come back. Like you could do that, right? People do that for miles actually. But I think for food, it is something where it's like every day you're eating food. Like I had to pay for 2 people too now. So like me and Philip. So that makes sense.
When you have kids, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you have,
unlimited food, baby. Bring them my way. You can have all my tickets.
Yeah, give it to me. You know what? When I think about food, I think about like Taiwan, but it's so cheap. It's like, okay,
that's like
$3
to a place where the cost of living is very low.
Exactly. I can eat on the airplanes in first class. I'm gonna get full and then I'll go. Hello. That's practical too, right?
Our first listener submitted question today comes from Katie, and Katie writes to us from Toronto. Katie's question is, have you ever heard of the saying, a birds of a feather flock together, or some variation of that? Do you think this is true? Do you think you are the average of the 5 closest people you have around you, and thus you want to be X, that you need to find the right people to surround yourself with, for example, successful people? But what if you naturally don't gravitate toward the very ambitious people? Does that mean that you just aren't cut out to be that way? What do you think of this in the context of weighing out a potential partner?
All right, Katie, so to answer your first question, I do believe that you should surround yourself with people, like-minded people for you to feel fulfilled. But I will say that my different groups of friends define success very differently. My ambitions and my goals are very different than my other groups of friends, but I don't think that takes away from our friendship. For me personally, I have many different groups of friends from different facets of my life, and they provide different things for me. Some is like, connection, some's humor, some's ambition. Some of it, honestly, is a mixture of all these things, but I need all those types of friendships for me to feel loved and fulfilled. So I think I would ask yourself, are your other groups of friends giving you this drive, this ambition that you feel like you need? And lastly, for me personally, like living in LA, I made it a priority to surround myself with like-minded people, especially within the Asian American community, who's passion driven. That's how I found these ladies too. Living in LA, having them being my close friends really just feeds me. So as a person, that's what I look for. But I think you ask yourself, what feeds you?
My hands.
My first class ticket.
Yeah, no, this is a great question, Katie. And I do think that to a large extent, the closest people that are in your life actually do influence you a lot. So whether it's you're like sending each other book recommendations or you're sending each other like Twitter memes or whatever it is, right? You are sharing the same ideas, and those are the things that like populate your mind in the spectrum of like 24 hours in a day, right? So I think for me, I don't think I've intentionally gone out to seek certain types of people in my life, but I will seek out people who like the same experience as me. And if it just so happens that they are on the same like wavelength or mindset, then I just end up hanging out with them like more and more and more. There definitely have been periods in my life where naturally I surrounded myself with more toxic people, and I learned that I don't want to be around people who are catty, that are draining, that are gossipy, and I am now aware of that like red flag when it happens. I am very lucky to be surrounded by people like Mel and Janet. Very, very lucky. And I think it does take time and it takes iteration. I think for you, Katie, maybe if you don't have like 5 people in your life that are super ambitious, but you're just naturally attracted to them, maybe you have one additional one that you go to because they are living the life that you do want to live, and you put in the effort to try and meet them and have coffee with them and talk to them and pick their brains and all that, and then they become a good friend. You know, it does take effort. You have to put in effort to make friendships. And lastly, for your question about partners, I do think that it is very important for me, now that I'm in my 30s, to have a partner that drives me as much as I drive them. And that is equally as like ambitious and passionate. I think I didn't learn that until I got into this relationship with Philip, that it was very necessary for me to have it. So yeah, for me, I think it's important.
So the statement that the 5 closest people to you, and whether it's 5 or whatever it is, but your close people that you see more often or you interact with more often have the highest impact on you, I completely agree with this. And I think it's really, really important at some point in your adult years or in your life to really be deliberate about the people that you keep in your life or the people that you remove from your life. I would say if you're looking at your current circle, it doesn't mean that you have to cut people out. I think I've been able to maintain many, many variations of friendships. You know, if you share like history with someone, they don't necessarily have to be the person that you spend every day with. So look at your friendships, keep them if there's still something there, but then think about what it is that you value and then look for those things deliberately in other people that you surround yourself with. And I think particularly for a partner too, this is very important. This is going to be the person that you spend the majority of your life with, that you have to work together with to raise a family if that is your goal. And so that's increasingly, as I get older, when I look for a partner, one of my biggest things is I look for characteristics that I really admire in someone. And so if there is a characteristic about them that I find really like counter to something that is my deep value, I feel like that just it's probably not going to work out.
What's an example of that?
I would say one is if you are someone who has a tendency to look for the worst in people. Generally, I think I really, really admire when people can see the good in other people and when they generally have and it doesn't have to be like, oh, they're thinking that things are butterflies and flowers everywhere, but generally that you have an optimistic outlook.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that one. I agree. Boo toxic people. Boo negativity. Boo, 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 boo.
I need to find a boo. Find me a boo. So do you know? Just kidding.
Write us right here.
Yeah. Just kidding. Please don't. All right, so our next question comes from Jean from the Boston area.
Woo!
Your area.
Boston, hey.
All right. Jean asked, as you 3 have matured, have you thought about what caring for your aging parents might or will look like? Example, financially, moving closer to your parents, and potential lifestyle changes you'll make in order to better take care of them. This is something I'm seriously thinking about. It feels like my non-Asian peers don't think about this at all. Wondering if y'all think about this too.
Well, I think for me, like, this is a question that actually is coming up and in conversation with my family nowadays. My parents live in Boston, so they're pretty far away from me. I live in LA. My mom's side of the family lives in LA, so her parents are here. And I guess for me, the way that I've seen them take care of their parents, my aunt had a house and she essentially built like a back house for my grandparents to live so that they can all live together and she can take care of them. And then on my dad's side, my grandma is in senior living apartments, but they go and bring her newspapers and food like very constantly. So there is a lot of caretaking for the older generation, and I for sure feel that way. My mom actually, both my parents, I think when they retire in a couple of years, they do want to move out to LA, which I'm super happy and excited about. But my mom is already sending me like these listings, and she's like, go check out this house. I'm like, Mom, like what the, I'm not ready for this yet. I have to pay for a wedding first, okay? But she's like, can you try and look for a townhouse a 2-family house so that you can live in one side and then Annie, my sister, can live in the other. So we have both our families there. And then she said, can you find also a townhouse with a big backyard so that I can live in the backyard? Make sure it has a permit to build in the backyard. And I'm like, Mom, this is very freaking specific. Like, I don't know if I can find this in LA of all places too, you know? So that, I guess I'm like kind of on the hunt for that.
For a big, like giant woo mansion.
Yeah.
So if you know any, hit her up, you know?
But yeah, that is her dream, and that is something that I find to be very important. And that is also my dream, to help her fulfill her dreams.
Very similar to Helen. So I saw my parents and my aunts and my uncles in their generation care for my grandparents in a very similar way. Both sets lived with us for a period and then lived with other aunts and uncles for a period. And then in their older age, moved into their own home or like a senior assisted living. But they were still, every week someone was visiting and bringing them things, or we were going out to eat. So I think being raised around that, like I knew always from a very young age that, I'm going to be active in my parents' parents' lives for like the duration of their life, right? But I think because we are, you know, born in American culture and that isn't like a common thing, I did oftentimes feel the back and forth of conflict of like what kind of life I saw for myself and then being able to be there for my family. So for example, in my 20s when I really wanted to go like move away and explore different things and try different jobs, I wasn't very constant in my contact with my family. Like they would still call and we would still call and I would still visit, you know, once in a while, but it wasn't as frequent. And I remember feeling like, dang, like my head knows that I want to be there for them and care for them, but my heart is like not ready for that, you know? But I felt a very distinct shift in my early 30s where like my head and my heart really aligned. And I felt that I had kind of gone out and done my thing, and now it was time to like come back to LA, come back home and be close to my family. So yeah, I would say it's definitely something I think about. And Jean, if you, because I see that you're pretty young, if this is something that you think about and you're kind of like feeling torn because you're not quite ready for that, know that you probably have a good amount of time before anything has to happen. So yeah.
Good advice. All right, so for me, I joke around about this all the time on the podcast and with my mom, and I say, once I get pregnant, you're already moving in and I have a room ready for you. But in all seriousness, my mom and I do talk about this. And my family, my grandparents always, like, their base was always in Taiwan, and they'll spend a few months in California with us, and they always had a room with us to stay in. And so I think my mom and I talked about like how she really wants to keep her house in the Bay Area and then go to Taiwan for periods of the year and maybe Hawaii and then come back to the States. And I think during that time she'll probably come and stay with me or my brother, depending on like who's closer or what she prefers. But she also made it really clear to me that she's like, you know what, like maybe this is her American or Western side talking, because she's pretty Americanized. She's saying, you know, I understand that you and your brother have your own life, and I don't want to intrude on that. I want to make it a priority that I want to have my own life outside of you two. And so, yeah, so she was like, I really want to travel the world with, you know, with your stepdad and all this stuff. And so she was like, I want to make sure I have my own community. There was a shift in my mom too that I saw that like her focus was on, you know, me and my brother, of course, but then she's made so many new friends through like Zumba and like her work and all this stuff. And so I know she does Zoom. I know. No, she don't do it yet. But through Zumba and stuff like that. So I think she's making an effort to make sure she has her group of people and her.
That's very good.
Yeah, and she has her own friends who are also around her same age. They're also a couple that she could travel with. So I think she's like, you know, I want to live my life too.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I think with that in mind, I'm like, okay, like there's a sense of like I get to do me, but when she wants to come, she's more than welcome to come. It seems like right now when she retires or her or my stepdad retire, they want to kind of do their own thing for a bit and not feel like they have to live with me.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So for the next portion of our Dear ABG segment, we're going to play a listener submitted voicemail.
Hi ABG, I love your podcast so much. I was wondering if there is a boy that seems just like absolutely perfect, but you guys are long distance and you guys are flourishing fairly well long distance. How would you continue the relationship to make sure that it still is maintained and is still strong? We visit each other about like once or twice every month. So other than that, is there anything else that we can do besides daily phone calls? I just wanted to ask, and I again want to emphasize how much I love you guys. And I hope to come to Waffle Cafe one of these days. Okay, bye.
Aww. That is so sweet. I have, I guess, some personal experience with this. My first boyfriend in high school and then through parts of college, we were long distance, both when we were in high school and then when we both went to college, we went to different colleges. So each time we were about 1 hour to 2 hours away. And this is before the time of like regular text messaging or like video chat. So the way that we maintained contact was just, we talked a lot over AIM, a lot over phone calls. I think if you're doing daily phone calls, I get the kind of appeal of doing like maybe every night around the same time. But another way that can kind of like, where you can use that form of communication is if you're just thinking about them, right? Like send a text if there's like a random thing that you see happening down the street that makes you think about them or something. So kind of those moments versus I think that when you do like timed conversations, it can just be about, this was my day, this is what I did, right?
You'd be like, oh, hey, I saw a hot guy walking down the street, just letting you know.
Made me think about you, yeah. Just kidding. But yeah, it's kind of like, that sparks conversation around things that are unique to you, right? Versus just kind of like, this is what I did with my day. The other thing, it sounds like you guys are already visiting, which is cool. Maybe plan a couple of trips together. I think when you travel with someone, you get to know each other really well.
So I've never been in a long distance relationship, let alone a lot of relationships.
All right, so my turn.
But I was talking to one of my guy friends about like Zoom dates, right? So I think that it seems like you talk every day, but actually be intentional with your phone calls and like your video calls. Like Tim and I were talking about this like for fun. He was like, oh, actually, why don't like, he's like, what I do on my Zoom dates, instead of just FaceTiming and talking, I plan like puzzle dates. Like I'll send her a puzzle, I'll do a puzzle, we'll do things together. So I feel like maybe like create like fun creative ways to make your FaceTime calls or Zoom calls more interesting. So just be a little bit more creative with it and it'd be kind of fun.
Oh, I like that. I've had, I guess, like short-term experiences with long distance. So the first time was with when I was studying abroad in Australia, and I had a boyfriend then. The only thing that I really remember for how we stay connected, other than like just calling each other a lot, is that he would wake me up in the morning. Like the time worked out where it'd be his nighttime where he was just going home from school or whatever it was, and so he would call me and it would pop up on my laptop and he would wake me up that way. And I thought that was really cute. And the other time, I guess, with Philip when I was in India and Spain, it was difficult at first because I was very like lonely there. So I didn't go there with like any friends or like not even a coworker that I knew until like I found out who they were later on, and then we were able to like hang out. But at the beginning, I definitely was very much like in need of someone to talk to. The phone calls were like not easy because the time just did not work out very well. And so something that did work out was, one, being more independent, and two, writing letters to each other, and emails, not letters, but like emails, because that made it feel like you weren't just calling each other and going, hey, how's it going? Oh, you have this going on? Okay, well, I have to go now. Okay, well, it's good talking to you for like a minute. Yeah, you too, you know, okay, bye. And that's it. But with an email, you're sitting down and intentionally, in your own free time, writing to each other, and it feels like a little diary entry to each other, like love notes, and you can also keep a chain of it. So I would highly recommend that because I feel like that helped us out a lot.
That's super cute.
That's really sweet. And that ends today's Dear ABG. If you have a question that you'd like to write us in about or a voicemail that you'd like to leave us, go ahead and look in the details for how to go about doing that.
If you haven't already, check out our most recent episode of the podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other podcasting platforms. And we'll catch you on the next episode next week. Bye!
Okay.
Sussing?
Yeah. Whoa! I'm gonna cover that with my hair.
Whoa, Nelly.
I was just listening to Nelly on the way here.
Smelly, just kidding.